Our next topic in this course is ritual and gender relations. We want to explore the many complex ways in which ritual communicates cultural ideas about femininity, masculinity, and relationships between women, men, and people of third genders. We have already seen that rituals can communicate important social lessons, and we have talked about how, because much of the learning in ritual occurs through embodiment and the manipulation of symbols, participants may be less aware of the fact that they are being trained in certain perspectives and behaviors than if they were told so explicitly. Now let's see how these ritual processes play out specifically in the domain of gender relations. We want to think about both gender roles and gender relations. Gender roles is a term that refers to behaviors that are typically expected of people of different genders in a society. Gender roles include the work tasks that are typically assigned to people of different genders. But gender roles include many, many more things, including, for example, patterns of speech, posture, gesture, dress, emotional expression, and expectations about leadership, domination, chivalry, loyalty, submission, or subservience. Gender relations, however, goes beyond gender roles and refers to the relationships between people of different genders in a society. Gender relations is also a useful term because it points to the fact that gender identities and roles are relational, that they stand in relationship to one another. That is, femininity is often defined in relationship to or in contrast to masculinity and vice versa, that what is masculine is not feminine, for example. Sometimes gender relations can be quite antagonistic, and a lot of cultural work is invested in keeping the peace. Sexuality is related to gender, but it is not the same thing. People's views about gender roles also often include expectations about how people should or should not behave sexually. Okay, now to tie in ritual. Notions about gender roles and relations are woven throughout many rituals in society, but sometimes in unexpected ways. For example, a ritual might represent idealized gender roles and help train young people into the kind of gender roles and relations that will be expected of them as adults. Rituals can reinforce gender hierarchies, for example, if people of one gender are taught dominance and the other taught submissiveness. Alternatively, the young people may be trained into roles that are configured as complementary, in which male and female are considered both important, although distinctive, that they balance one another somehow. Such rituals might depict them as of equal importance and equal worth. However, pay attention to subtle messages conveyed. It is possible that genders can be represented as equally important and complementary, but nonetheless that one should dominate. Or a ritual might be a place apart, in which people are given license to play with gender roles that are normally forbidden to them in everyday life, a sort of role reversal. Another possibility is that a ritual might involve men and women, girls and boys performing acts of aggression against one another, possibly serving as a release valve for tensions that are built up through everyday relations, and then ultimately keeping the peace between men and women. Rituals can also embed a host of messages about the meaning of marriage and sexuality. To explore this topic, we will go to modern-day Morocco and Nepal, and also back to medieval England. First, you will read Elaine Combs-Schilling's article, Etching Patriarchal Rule, Ritual Dye, Erotic Potency, and the Moroccan Monarchy, which is about Moroccan weddings. The groom and the bride in Moroccan weddings are separated for most, even all of the wedding ceremony, each involved in separate ritual activities. One of the activities that the brides participate in involves the application of intricate designs in henna dye to their hands, arms, and feet. Then you will watch the film A Living Goddess in Kathmandu. Kathmandu is the capital of Nepal with Hindu and Buddhist residents, and there are thousands of temples in the city dedicated to hundreds of goddesses. The film shows us that one of the goddesses in the city is considered a living goddess, Kumari. Also, we witnessed the performance of the Bara Tayegu ceremony performed by Newari girls prior to their first menstruation. You will learn about some other important goddesses and also about 2 male gods. Then you will watch the episode on marriage from the television limited series Medieval Lives. We see that during the medieval period, enormous changes took place in how English people conducted wedding ceremonies. These changes related to both church intervention in the institution of marriage and also the system of social classes. For much of the period, 2 different types of wedding ceremonies were recognized, and these ceremonies communicated very different ideas about marriage, which ultimately created a crisis of legitimacy about unions and kept ecclesiastical courts busy with annulment and divorce proceedings. As you're reading the article and watching the films, think about what sort of messages about gender roles and relations the rituals would send to the participants through their symbols and symbolic actions. What would participants learn about what society expects from them as gendered persons and what liberties they possess? The messages might be the same or radically different. I look forward to reading your ideas in the discussion.